Hey guys, I'm here to do the first part of my wrap up for my December reading. These are books 1 through 7 that I read for the first week of December. The first book here is Electric Arches by Eve L. Ewing. I thought this was really good. Um, it's a poetry collection, and I do my only thing I hope the problem with doing the vlogs is that I get like a little confused and I don't want to repeat myself or anything. But my only like criticism is that I do feel like the first section, whose title is True Stories, was just so strong. It was so strong, and I was really hoping that the rest of the book would continue in the same vein. There's a lot of like magical realism-y, science fiction type things that are put in it. The first story, especially, Arrival Day, was just incredible. And then there's a lot of these stories where she's talking about something that I'm gonna assume happened in real life. I'm not really sure, but this happens here, that the type part, and then this bottom part is just a continuation of the story, but it makes it like a little bit magical. So like it changes kind of the vibe of the story a little bit, which I thought those were like my absolute favorite ones, were the ones where that happened. So I did really like this. I gave this 4 to 5 stars, I believe, but I wish that I would have read like hundreds and hundreds of pages of that first section. I thought it was so good. The next book that I have is The Blue Fox by Sjan, and this is translated from the Icelandic by Victoria Cribb. This is set up into 3 different parts. In the first part, we're following a hunter who's trying to hunt a blue fox, and so it's kind of like the relationship between the fox and the hunter during this like really snowy, um, uh, like not thunderstorm, avalanche. Is that that's what happens, right? Type avalanche type situation. Um, and then we go back in time a couple of days, and then we, are learning kind of more about the man's world. Although it's not really, you don't really know who the hunter is. There's a couple of people that are mentioned in part 2, and then in the last section, you kind of find out who the hunter is. I wouldn't say I think why he's hunting too. I don't quite remember. That's the problem with reading so many books in such quick succession. You don't remember every little detail. But yeah, I thought this was the language and the writing is so beautiful. It feels kind of like a fairy tale in the way that it's told. Nothing like super deep and meaningful though. I probably gave this like 3.5 stars. I don't know which way I rounded at this point. But yeah, in general, if you like pretty writing, this is very pretty. The next one that I read was The Shape of Water by Andrea Camilleri. I still don't know how to pronounce his name. And this is translated by Stephen Sartarelli. And this I did not like at all. I'm not at all. I gave it 2 out of 5 stars. It was relatively quick for the length of it. Like it's a pretty easy read. But I don't know if it's the time period. This was written in the 90s by an author who I assume is Sicilian, definitely Italian, if not Sicilian. And there's a lot of like negative women portrayed in this book. Our main character comes off as like this wonderful, great guy who, is just awesome. And then all the women around him are like sluts, basically. And they're trying to get in his pants, and he's like too great and noble to have sex with any of them. And like he's just the best, and all these women are little whores. Like that's the vibe that I got from this book, which isn't great. It's not a great vibe. And I feel like the killer, quote unquote killer, was 100% obvious the second that we were introduced to the character. So that was kind of a bummer. I really was hoping to find like a mystery series that is translated that I could enjoy, because I feel like right now I've got, the Hester, not Hester Prynne. I forgot what her name is, but the Cocaine Blues lady, her, and like, Agatha Christie and Charlotte. Like I feel like I've got a bunch of like series that I can read, but I really wanted something translated that was a mystery series. So I was hoping this would be it. It's definitely not, because no. The next thing that I read was Walking Dead Volume 1. This is great. You probably know all about this. I feel like this went very quick compared to the show with regards to one of the plot points, and it did make me like, miss, it's like, man, there's a bunch of stuff. I feel like it just is making me miss the TV show more. So we'll see. I'm sure once I get more into the comic, I'll enjoy the comic more than the show. But right now, it just brought up a bunch of characters, and I'm like, oh man, I like totally forgot about that person because everybody dies basically. Spoiler alert, but it's a show about zombies or a comic about zombies. So most people die. Like it's one of those shows where there's like a big rotation of cast, and there's like just a handful of people that stick around. So I definitely, yeah, now I'm like really interested to finish this and then maybe eventually go back and rewatch it. Jake is catching up, so I think I left off on season 4. So he's catching up to me, and then we're going to watch it together. And then I'm going to finish the comic and then go back and binge the show because that's how I do. The next one that I have is my favorite, When Mystical Creatures Attack by Kathleen Pounce. I was going to do a solo book talk on this, and I started doing it, and it's only like 3 minutes long, so I'm just not going to do it, unfortunately. But it's been too long since I read it. I need to be better about doing book talks for books when they're like really fresh in my mind, because now that it's been, so many days and I've read so many books since I've read this, it's just not quite as fresh, which is really unfortunate. But I want everyone to read this book. I think it's really good. There are some like definite triggers because this is dealing with mental illness and things like that. I believe there might be some child abuse. There's definitely like abortion talk. There's tons of like really, really heavy stuff in this book. We're following our main characters, which are a teacher whose name I don't remember and a student whose name I don't remember. The teacher is a teacher in kind of like a lower income school where the students are not like super motivated and, they're troublemakers, one might say. And so the teacher basically loses it one day because they do something, and she ends up going to a mental health institute called Bridges, which is like a rehab center, whatever. And so then one of the students, she is concerned about the teacher, so she writes her a letter, and the eventually the letters like kind of stop being like the teacher basically can't talk to people outside of the mental health institute because she is also a little naughty and doesn't get enough like wellness points, so she's not able to communicate with people. I just think this is so good. The father-daughter issues, both the teacher and the student have a lot of like father and like familial problems, and so it's kind of nice to see the parallel between their relationships because like even though this teacher thinks she's like going to help these people, like she's also got a lot of problems, which I feel like usually people that go into those kinds of situations and those kinds of jobs usually do have their own like problems that they're trying to kind of like they want to help other people. But yeah, in general, this was so good, so moving. I cried a ton. I wish I could remember more things to tell you other than I just really, really loved this, and it was a pretty easy read. And if you are into books about people having lives and things going wrong, not like in a funny way, in like a this is some real shit kind of way, then you should read this book. Sorry, I can't, it's not as fresh anymore. The next one that I have is Guilt by Raina Shirali. I feel this way, the way about this book that I felt about reading Pansy and I Be But I Ain't, wherein I feel like I've never been good. I want to say I'm almost spectrum-y. Like it's really hard for me to like kind of grasp symbolism and metaphors and like all that kind of stuff. I'm very much like straightforward. I need you to tell me exactly what you mean. If you try to like insinuate something or try to kind of like, I'm not good with that. My brain doesn't work that way. I think I'm like gonna get way too personal, but I think I had a lot of issues growing up where I feel I've always felt kind of like not made fun of, whatever, where I feel like people would like say things in a sarcastic tone or like say like positive things but have them not be real. And so now I think that's kind of changed my brain where if you don't say something then I don't think that it's true. You know what I mean? Like I just can't I don't think that I am good enough to interpret what someone is saying in a way that would be accurate. So that makes it hard for me to read poetry because a lot of poetry is not straightforward. It's all like it's very beautiful and it's really well written. I just think that I didn't rate it. I feel like if I were to rate it, it would be like a 3.5. But like it has this is the highest rated thing that I have on Goodreads. It's like rated 4.94 and or at least like that I've read this year, how the little thing tells you. So I'm just like disappointed because I wish that I could get it, but I just, because of the way that my brain works, I don't think that I do poetry well, which is unfortunate. So that was kind of a weird review for for this. Oh, in case you're wondering, this is she is an Indian American, like from India, immigrant, and so that is why I picked this, because that is not like Indian specific intrigues me, but anytime that there's like two cultures within a person, kind of, it intrigues me. Like if you're dealing with, you know, your cultural background and like also the culture in which you grow up and are raised in, I'm really, really interested in that. I think it's fascinating. I feel like all of us have multiple aspects, and people are too quick to put people in a specific box when we all kind of are part of multiple boxes. So that's why I wanted to read this. I'm definitely going to reread this in the future. I think also because I had to read it, so quickly, it didn't work well for me. If you've read this, let me know. This is published by Yes Yes Books. So I think they're a great publisher of poetry, and I think they pick really, really good, interesting books. But again, I just don't think that I'm quite smart enough to get it. And then the last thing that I read was Fences by August Wilson, and oh my God, this was also so good. This is probably also one of my favorite things that I read this year. This was so good. It's a play, and we're following Rose and Troy. And Rose, I think it's Rose, she asked for Troy to build a fence around their house, or around their yard. Duh. And so that's the whole like premise, or like where the setting is of the play. But it touches on so many things, and it does that thing where you've got a character where you're just like, man, you are like, I don't like you, you're terrible, but like there's something about you that like makes me like sympathize or empathize with you, even though I I find you really upsetting most of the time. The relationship between Troy and his son is like really, really powerful. Between Troy and Rose is really powerful. Between Troy and his friend are really like, I feel like Troy is like, just all of these like relationships that he has are so, there's just so much juicy stuff in there, and it was really, really, really good. And I definitely want all of Wilson's plays now. I really liked this. Thank you, Noir Reads. Two of the books that I read this month were from Noir Reads. These two came in my last box, so I'm really excited about that. Anyways, that is the first 7 books that I read in the month of December. If you have read any of these, or if you want to say anything about them, please comment below. I will try to respond in a timely fashion, because I don't know. It's December, guys. I'm sorry. But yeah, anyways, let me know if you've read any of these, and I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.